Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing the weekly report for Wednesday the 6th of December, outlining some of the key movements and aspects taking place during this time. So if we start off with the signs that the moon's going through, so on Wednesday the 6th, he starts off in Cancer, so initially the main focus will be on our internal world. It's exploring our dreams, our emotional side, and getting in touch with our own feelings and really focusing on our own personal emotional nourishment. But on the same day, a bit later, the moon will be moving into Leo, so this will mark a change in feeling from that emotional nourishment into feeling that creative drive within us and the desire to use that creative energy to enhance our self-expression, enhance self-discovery through exploring our creative potentials and engaging in a more playful kind of spirit. Then later on Friday, the moon will move into Virgo, so during this couple of days, the main feeling or focus will be on taking care of the practicalities of life and the desire to potentially be of use to other people, so whatever skills we have, use them to help other people and just bring a general sense of order and into our daily lives, so getting the practicalities of things sorted. And then on Monday, the moon will move into Libra, and here the main emotional focus will be on relationships, that need for connection with one another on a one-to-one basis, and that feeling of developing mutuality between two people, so that connection and that spending time with one another. So that's the moon side of things. Now, one of the most important changes this week is going to be Mars is moving into Scorpio on the 9th of December, which is on Saturday, and this will bring a major change in our actions and desires from Libra, where Mars has been for the past few weeks. So it's been, up to now, it's been focusing on things like taking into account other people's needs in our decisions, trying to look at both sides of an equation before we make a choice, and just trying to engage other people in our decision making so that actions we take align with the people, as long as we're not obviously engaging in people pleasing behaviour, so we're doing something at our own expense just to make other people happy with us. But now with Mars moving into Scorpio, it's going to be a big change to may feel a desire for developing greater sense of power within ourselves. Now, Mars traditionally is a ruler of Scorpio, so his energy is quite strong here. Mars is fire and Scorpio is water. Bring the two together and you get steam. So, in effect, what we're looking at is how do we actually utilise the steam? Are we using it or channeling it constructively so it powers everything constructively and allows us to achieve things, or do we just let off steam willy-nilly and end up hurting other people as a result of that? So with Mars and Scorpio, it's time of looking at our deeper desires, ones that are generally in the unconscious at the moment, and these could be desires for greater power, or it may well reveal where we actually feel powerless and we engage in egotistic actions to try and mask this sense of insecurity and powerlessness. So during this time, Scorpio is one of the key signs of purification, and with Mars here, we're looking at purifying our desires and trying to elevate them beyond personal gains and personal animalistic desires, and elevating it to a higher level, so our actions and desires have a more transpersonal focus. So we're looking not just at our own selves and what we can gain, we're also looking at the big picture. We're understanding that what we do impacts other people, and if we're engaging in something egotistically, other people may react to that and try and stop it. Whereas if we can elevate our desire function and the actions that accompany them, so that we're looking at the big picture, we're understanding that if we take in actions that take into account other people and seek mutual empowerment, so we're empowering ourselves and we're helping to empower another person without trying to take control over their lives, then we can break down the conflicting side of Scorpio. So Mars and Scorpio, we may experience it as conflict, or we may see it as an opportunity to transform our desires, so that we're not just looking at satisfying personal desires and personal appetites, but looking at the big picture and seeing how we can help other people through purging our own negative desires and embracing the desires of the heart and the soul, which is a desire to return or reconnect with Source, to surrender all egoic attitudes of control that cause suffering, in order to allow true power to flow through us. Because the true power is at the core of who we are, but if we're operating at the ego, which is the layers between who we think we are and where we are, and who we truly are, then these veils of illusion will impact our ability to take action. It'll impact the results of what will happen, and it will generally show us the ramifications of what we're doing. So it's important during this transit of Mars through Scorpio that we honestly reflect on our desires and we evaluate the source of them. Are they just animalistic desires from the ego trying to satisfy its appetites, or satisfy its need for control and power? Or do we recognise that the ego is just an illusion, albeit a necessary one, and do we break through its walls to the soul and allow true power to radiate from that place of true being? Because when this power radiates outwards from the core of who we are, rather than trying to seek power external to us, then this power can then help transform other people's lives in a constructive way that will help them, empower them. But ideally we avoid any kind of dependency. It's just showing the other person how they can get in touch with their own power by being an example of that. Now, another aspect that I want to discuss, it's already ongoing, and we've had the first exact trine between Jupiter and Neptune, but this is an aspect that I feel need to look at in a bit more detail. So trines are generally seen as positive because the energy is free flowing between two planets, but really it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because if one planet is operating at a low level of consciousness, then that can quite easily spread to the other planets in the trine, and both, so it becomes just either an upward spiral or downward spiral depending on how we approach it. Now, with Neptune and Jupiter together, if we're operating at the higher level, we're looking at radiating a generosity towards all beings. Now, what I mean by this is not necessarily giving our own personal resources to other people willy-nilly. This is more about learning to overcome any narrow-mindedness and share a sense, or radiate a sense of love to other people, of radiating kindness to other people, whether or not we particularly want to or not. So it's overcoming, because let's face it, some people aren't easy for us to deal with. They're not easy for us to be patient with, to show kindness to, because they're always pushing buttons. But at the same time, these are the people who can really teach us how to be more patient, be more kind towards other people, because they really test our ability. People who are easy to get along with don't really teach us anything, because we're not being challenged to deepen our compassion, deepen our kindness, and deepen that generosity of spirit. So Neptune and Jupiter is a time where we need to, where there's opportunities to become more kind, more patient, by having challenging people cross our paths who really test these areas, we can really get a gauge of where we really are. Because if we're just hanging out with people who are like us, we can't really gauge how far we've progressed. But if we're encountering people who challenge these areas, who are really real test of patience, real test of your kindness, these are the ones who really help us to understand what kindness and unconditional love are, because they're the ones who aren't easy to deal with, don't necessarily inspire kindness in us, but either way, kindness is one of the fruit of the spirit, so it's important that we use this time to develop this. Now, one of the key shadows of Jupiter and Neptune together is things like spiritual pride. So this is where we have an overinflated sense of where we are at, or overinflated sense of what we're capable of, and we believe that we're this superior person who's better than everyone else. And it can also indicate that need to be right, that egoic desire to try and prove that we're right at all costs, even if it damages important relationships. So this is a time where we need to become more mindful of our pride. Now, Jupiter's in Scorpio, of course, and Neptune is in Pisces. And Neptune in Pisces is particularly strong because he's in his home sign. So this is a sign which is, if we're doing it correctly, we're embracing our spiritual nature. We're allowing the ego to be dissolved and sublimated to its correct role. There's no point destroying the ego, because we need it in order to interact with the world around us. We wouldn't be able to take any action without it. But at the same time, the ego needs to be sublimated, so it's just a servant that helps us to fulfill our goals. It takes the actions necessary to manifest the goals we set, but it's not in control. And with Neptune Pisces, it's a time to really understand universal love, to break down the walls of the ego that stop us from being open to this universal love, and to allow any wounds of disconnection or any escapist tendencies which the ego uses to avoid its own dissolution, and to transform our relationship with it. So instead of requiring substitutes to connect with spiritual energy, we can feel it within ourselves without needing interaction with other people to feel that connection in the first place. It's all about self-love. So it's important that we learn to love ourselves, we learn to let go of all the habits that we use to try and feel a connection with spiritual energy, because we haven't developed enough love for ourselves to feel it anyway. Because love is the power that connects us back to our spiritual nature, and it's important that we focus on learning to love ourselves. Jupiter in Scorpio is also emphasising this, because it's making the unconscious conscious. So where we have old patterns of control, old negative emotional patterns we cling on to, these patterns can sabotage our behaviours and lead us to engage in control dramas and attempts to control other people, to manipulate for energy. But if we can become aware of these tendencies, aware of the fears that drive them, and transform those fears through the power of love, through surrendering our egoic desires, Mars and Scorpio, then we can open up to a higher power, and this higher power makes it easier for us to manifest the positive side of the trine between Jupiter and Neptune, which is showing that kindness to everyone, rather than being narrow-minded, being too focused on pride. It's not just pride by spiritual pride, it's not just about being good. It could just be the need to always be right, even when we're not. So it's important that we have pride in ourselves in terms of what we're capable of. It's important that we value ourselves and we don't underestimate ourselves, or don't undervalue who we are. But at the same time, it needs to be put into perspective, and we need to have enough humility to give of ourselves to other people within reason. Boundaries are still important. We can't just give our energy away willy-nilly, because let's face it, some people just use other people or manipulate them for energy. So it's about learning to be discerning at the same time. So it's being kind to other people, but not being a doormat. So sometimes the most kind thing we can do is to set a strong boundary with someone and make it clear that certain things are not acceptable. This is the harder side of love. It's the challenging people and calling out the bullshit. But it's necessary, because otherwise, if we're just accepting what another person's doing, even if it's immoral or hurting people, then we're not helping the person committing those acts. We're actually enabling them to carry on doing that, because some people, if you're kind to them, they just take that as a message that they can carry on doing what they're doing. And sometimes it's important that we pull them to one side and say, stop, this is what you're doing, this is the effect it's having on other people. Yes, we love you and we want the best for you, but we cannot accept this behaviour which you're engaging, which is hurting other people. So it's necessary that we embrace the tough love as well, not just the easy love that we associate with the idea of love. It's also the tough love of saying, enough, this behaviour is not acceptable, it's hurting other people, and we're not prepared to tolerate it anymore. Sometimes that is the most kind thing you can do to someone, is to pull them up on their actions and point out the impact it's having on other people so that they can become aware of what they're doing. If they refuse to take it on board, then that is their choice, but at least if we've taken that stance of tough love and pointed out what they're doing, they can't say that they're no longer aware of it because we've highlighted it. Ideally in a loving way. It's not about putting that person down, but it's important that behaviours that are hurting people through selfish desires are made aware of so that they can be transformed. But at the end of the day, it's each person's individual choice as to whether we make that step of transforming our desires and moving away from a selfish attitude to a more all-encompassing point of view where we recognise that we're sharing a planet with 7 billion other people. The world, we're not the most important person in the world, but it's important at the same time that we take care of ourselves, we love ourselves, and we embrace who we are unconditionally. And at the same time, if we can love ourselves, that opens up a wellspring of love within us, which can then flow outwards and help other people without draining our energy. So this is a time where we need to focus on transforming the core of who we are, transforming our shadow side through loving acceptance of those parts of ourselves and integrating it with the light, because the yin and yang, both sides are exactly the same size. Increases light, the darkness also increases to balance it out. But the more we can hold the two in balance within ourselves and transform them so that we're aware of our shadow side but it no longer controls us, then we can accept the power that comes from the shadow side without it corrupting our desires, without it causing harm to other people. It just brings a more complete sense of self where we acknowledge and appreciate our own shadow side as well, but it's kept in balance with the light and is never in control of our own desires. So this is a time to really learn to love ourselves, embrace that all universal love, that unconditional love, firstly for ourselves so that we can transform our fears, and then as that work is being done, that naturally opens up more love within us, and if we keep allowing that love to fill up from within rather than trying to get it from other people, the love will then overflow from us into the world around us, and our very being will radiate that love that can bring the transformation that so many people are looking for, but unfortunately the world tries to teach us to look outside of ourselves rather than within. So if we can take that inward journey of transforming the shadow, of releasing negative attachments, and to embrace universal love for ourselves and for others, then the hive side of Jupiter and Neptune can manifest, and we can share that kindness with other people while still maintaining the boundaries to make sure that we're not taken advantage of by other people. So I hope it's a useful guide for this week's astrology. Obviously Jupiter and Neptune is a more long-term aspect, but I feel it's important to discuss it because we're seeing both, in some cases we're seeing the positive manifestation of it, so people who radiating that love to other people, and we're also seeing the shadow side. We're seeing increasing numbers of people showing spiritual pride, thinking that they're a guru, or thinking that they're more important than other people and that their way is the right way, and if anyone questions them then that person's instinct is instantly wrong and bad. This is a time to really focus on elevating these two functions so that we can share that universal love that's radiating through us, whilst making sure that we also engage in the tough love where necessary to make sure that selfish desires or selfish acts are not tolerated or not encouraged and cause just more pain to other people. So may this week and subsequent weeks bring you many blessings. Take care.